Remember that one D&D session you'll never forget? I know you have it. Maybe it was the jaw-dropping plot twist that no one saw coming, or the time the party barely survived with a single hit point left on the board. Or perhaps it was just one of those nights where everything fell into place. The characters, the story, the world, all coming together like it was meant to be. Those are the moments we chase as dungeon masters and players. But let's be honest, they don't happen by accident. Crafting sessions that consistently hit those high notes takes more than luck. It takes smart planning, getting your players involved, and being ready to embrace the unexpected. And this guide will break down how to create D&D experiences that stick with you long after the game is over. Because those legendary sessions aren't just something you stumble into, they're made. Your players are at the table, snacks in hand, ready to dive into the adventure. But before anyone starts rolling for initiative, you need to do one crucial thing. Grab their attention like a kobold grabs treasure. The first few minutes of your session set the tone for everything that follows. So why settle for a lukewarm start when you can knock their socks off right from the get-go? Forget the tired, mysterious man in the corner with a cloak trope. I've seen Lord of the Rings, I get it, we all love Aragorn, but your players? They've seen it too, and they're expecting something fresh. So why not hit them with a tavern scene that feels more like a chaotic episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? Suddenly, they're not just in a tavern, they're in the middle of Charlie work with a side of goblin mischief. Boom. Instant engagement. Or how about when the party walks into a tavern expecting a quiet drink, but instead they're met with a bar brawl that spills right into their laps. Chairs are flying, the bard's trying to calm everyone down with a lute solo, and before anyone can say roll initiative, well, that's your job after all, they're already deep in the action. By the time the quest is finally revealed, your players are already laughing, engaged, and itching to see what happens next. The point is, the start of your session is your chance to set the pace and let your players know this isn't just another night of dice rolling, it's a night where anything can happen. And here's the kicker, let your players shape those moments. Give them the room to react, improvise, and bring their characters to life in a way that feels natural to them. Maybe one character throws themselves into a brawl, fist swinging, while another tries to reason with the NPC, only to get caught up in their wild tales. By allowing your players to interact with the world right off the bat, you're not just telling them a story, you're inviting them to create it with you. This collaborative energy is what makes sessions unforgettable. Your players will remember those quirky, chaotic openings because they were a part of it, not just passive observers. And when players feel like they're in control of their destiny from the very start, they're more likely to stay engaged and invested throughout the entire session. So ditch the cliches and start your sessions with a bang. Give your players something unexpected, something that sparks their imagination, and something that lets them dive headfirst into the game. The more you let them take the reins, the more memorable and fun your game night will be. Okay, so you've got your players hooked with an epic start. Great job, but now comes the real challenge. You gotta keep that energy going. And no, you can't just bribe them with pizza every time something slows down. Trust me, I've tried. Turns out, players will just eat the pizza and still zone out if the story's flat. So, how do you keep them on the edge of their seats? Well, the secret? Make your players feel like they're not just along for the ride, but actually driving the story forward. You might have meticulously planned a plot with carefully crafted NPCs and an intricate storyline, but here's the thing. No plan survives first contact with the players. None of them. And that's a good thing. The most memorable sessions are the ones where the story goes off the rails, where players take the reins and steer the adventure in unexpected directions. Your job as a DM is to roll with it, adapt on the fly, and make sure their choices have real consequences, good or bad. Let's say your players decide to side with a villain because, hey, he made a compelling argument, and the party's rogue has always had a soft spot for morally gray characters. Instead of pulling them back onto the correct path, lean into it. Maybe now, instead of stopping the villain's plans, they're helping him pull it off, all while dealing with the fallout from their former allies. Suddenly, your campaign has taken a wild turn, and your players are more invested than ever because it's their choices that led to this twist. Another example. So you've got this epic dungeon all planned out, complete with traps, treasures, a villain monologue that would make Shakespeare jealous. And what do your players decide to do? Well, they'd rather open a bakery in the next town over. At this point, you can either fight it, well, good luck with that, or embrace the chaos. Let them bake their cupcakes and, oh, would you look at that? That ancient cursed amulet you were saving for later just happens to be the prize in the town's annual bake-off. Suddenly, the stakes are higher than ever, and your players are more invested in this impromptu Great British Bake-Off D&D edition than they ever were in that dungeon. It's easy to feel frustrated in the moment when you feel everything is crumbling around you, but the important thing is, don't sweat it. Use it as an opportunity to create something new. Pull elements from your first plan and sprinkle them into their new destination. The traps, monsters, and treasures you plan can still make an appearance, just in a way that feels more organic and player driven. The key here is to make sure your players know their choices matter. When they feel like they're in control of the story, they're more likely to engage with the world and invest in their characters' decisions. And when their decisions lead to unexpected outcomes, it creates those unforgettable moments we're all aiming for. So, loosen the reins and let your players surprise you. Encourage them to think outside the box, and don't be afraid to throw your plans out the window if it means following the story they're creating. After all, D&D is at its best when it's a collaborative storytelling experience, not just a scripted narrative. Otherwise, you could just write a book. You know, like George R.R. Martin. Except, maybe you can actually finish it. Or at least pretend you're finishing it while secretly rolling nat 20s on your procrastination check. And hey, if all else fails, why don't you just have the TV show writers write it and let them write the worst ending known to man? Wait, why am I even doing D&D YouTube again when I could be sitting on a pile of gold with unfinished manuscripts? Oh, right. Because I actually like my fans. Anyway, moving on. Alright, so you've kicked off the session with a banger, and your players are fully locked in. But here's the real test. How do you keep the hype train rolling all night long? Because the last thing you want is your epic campaign to suddenly feel like a Monday morning staff meeting, where half the table is taking glances at their phones, and the other half is desperately trying to remember if they left the oven on. No, what you want is to keep that energy up. Make sure your players are hanging on every word, and that they're fully immersed in the chaos you've lovingly crafted. First up is pacing. Think of your session like a roller coaster. You've got to balance the slow climbs with the thrilling drops. Too much combats and your player will feel like they're grinding XP in a never-ending MMORPG. Too much roleplay and, well, I mean your fighter is called a fighter after all. They don't really do much else. So mix it up. Just wrapped up an epic battle with a horde of goblins? Cool, give them a minute to catch their breath, patch up those wounds, and maybe even spend a few minutes arguing over whether it's ethical to loot the goblin camp for that weirdly specific collections of spoons they found. They'll turn that into a full-blown philosophical debate if you let them. But if you see your players starting to drift off into the I'm just here for the snacks territory, it's time to turn up the heat. Throw in a surprise. Maybe the spoons are cursed, I don't know, or have a random NPC burst in like Kramer from Seinfeld, spouting something cryptic and urgent. You can even spice things up by having the spoons start whispering secrets to each player. Nothing unites a party like shared paranoia. Keep up this level of pacing and you'll have your players looking up from their phones, fully engaged in the moment instead of pondering what other characters they could be playing instead. And now I'm realizing if they start enjoying your game so much, they're going to forget to watch this channel. Oh god, what have I done? We might just be dooming our own watch time before we even get started. So, if you could, do us a favor and subscribe. Because if this channel tanks, I might just have to start a new career as a professional cheese grater. Just me and a mountain of cheddar crying while I shut my dreams into oblivion. Now that you've hooked your players, kept them engaged, and maintained the energy throughout your session, the question becomes, how do you end it in a way that has them clamoring for more? If you're thinking, I'll just call it a night whenever, you're missing out on one of the best opportunities to make your campaign truly unforgettable. The ending of your session is just as crucial as the start. You want your players to leave the table buzzing with excitement, texting each other all week about what's going to happen next. So, how do you do that exactly? Well, I've got two words for you. Cliffhangers and teasers. Think of it like a season finale of your favorite TV show. You know, the one that leaves you screaming at your screen because they just dropped a bombshell, and now you have to wait an entire year to find out what happens? Well, you have the power to do that with your sessions. Maybe the party defeats the big bad, but just as they're catching their breath, the shadowy figure steps forward with a sinister grin, revealing that they were just a pawn in a much bigger game. Now you've just locked them into your storytelling so hard, they'll be thinking about that moment for the entire week, or month, or year, depending on your game schedule. You want your players to groan and beg for just a few more minutes of game time, not check their watches and yawn. Channel that feeling you get when your favorite TV show throws in a plot twist and suddenly the credits roll. And now you have to wait months to find out what happens next. Yeah, that's the energy. But here's the trick. You don't always need to end on a massive cliffhanger. Wrapping up a major arc or giving your players a well-earned victory can be just as effective. Let them bask in the glory of defeating the dungeon boss or solving that tricky puzzle. But leave them with just enough loose threads to pull them back in. Sure, you could let them bask in their victory for a hot minute, but make sure there's that tiny nagging feeling like, wait, it's not really over, is it? The last thing you want is for them to feel too comfortable. Happy endings are overrated. Suspicious glances and uneasy smiles? Now that's where the fun's at. Maybe they saved the girl that was kidnapped by her uncle, but uh-oh, the parents are acting a bit too eager in all the wrong ways. It doesn't have to be a full-blown cliffhanger, Sometimes a whisper of what's to come is all you need. Still, don't forget to give them a sense of accomplishment. Even if you're leaving them dangling off a narrative cliff, make sure they feel like they've achieved something. It's like when you finish a chapter in a book. You're excited for the next one, but you also feel satisfied with what you've just read. Basically, the key is balance. Leave enough unanswered questions to keep them hungry for more, but tie up just enough loose ends to make them feel like they've moved the story forward. Speaking of moving the story forward, I don't mean to be too forward, but have you ever considered the fact that only 3 of our subscribers are subscribed? That's right. It's a crazy stat, isn't it? What do you mean you don't believe me? You just came here for the essay? You don't want to hear me YouTubering about how many countless hours goes into the scripts and the editing and the recording? Whatever, it's your loss, I guess. I'll just get back to the good stuff then. Alright, my friends who are hovering over the subscribe button, waiting to press it. Let's talk about ranking your game up from hanging around a kitchen table to I can't believe that just happened. You've got your story, your rules, but how do you really blow your players' minds? Well, with props, of course. Imagine tossing a weathered letter across a table instead of just describing it. Now your players are holding it, seeing it, smelling it, for some reason, and wondering if they need to wash their hands because it smelled really bad. Or you could hand them some fake coins when they loot a chest. Now all you have to do is figure out how to make those real coins into real mimics, and it'll be lore accurate. Because you should always make the treasure the mimic. The chest is just way too predictable. Now, onto the minis. Sure, you can describe the menacing dragon, but why do that when you can slam a giant dragon mini onto the table and see your players' faces going from, oh, we got this, to, well, guess I'll die. It's all about the drama, baby. Throw in a map or some custom terrain, and suddenly your group's not just playing D&D, they're in a full-on tabletop production of Lord of the Rings, minus the expansive budget and with far more snack breaks. Oh, you don't have terrain? That's no problem. Just raid your kitchen for some random objects. I mean, hell, one time I made an entire city entirely out of graph paper and DVD cases, and it was the greatest night of my life. Even playing with 3 different copies of Flushed Away, don't ask me why, to represent houses, it really upped the atmosphere of the game. Speaking of atmosphere, let's talk about lighting. If you're still playing under your room's bright overhead light, you're really missing out. Switch things up with dim lights, candles, or those fancy flame effect bulbs, and boom! Your players feel like they're about to summon something dark and mysterious, like the pizza delivery man. Pro tip, don't actually use fire. We're trying to add drama, not burn down your house. Finally, we've got music. An epic battle scene, crank up the orchestra. Hell, I even gone so far as to throw in NFL themes onto my playlist. Creepy dungeon crawl, eerie ambient music is your friend. But don't get carried away and throw in something weird like yakety sax. Unless you're running a chase scene, in which case, honestly, just do it and commit to the chaos. And come back to this video and tell me how it went. I really want to know. Just remember, the goal here is to make your game so immersive that your players forget they're in your basement and think they're about to fight a dragon for real. Now, everything that I mentioned up to this point is important for sure, and definitely has a place in making a memorable session, but believe it or not, I've actually saved the most important, most impactful tip for the last. That's right. I, the middling YouTuber who's struggling to hit 1,000 subs, which you can totally help out, by the way, it's free, it doesn't cost you anything. I have held hostage the greatest tip of all. Right after this ad break. Nah, I'm just kidding. We don't have any sponsors. I'll just tell you it. Here we go. Drumroll, please. You need to be having a good time too. Yep, that's right. You. The big boss, the narrator, the one pulling the strings. If you're not enjoying yourself, then what's really the point? This isn't some selfless exercise in player pampering. Here's a little reminder. This game? Yeah, it's not just for your players. You're not the puppet master behind some sad little diorama where everyone gets to have fun but you. No, you're part of this. When you're having fun, when you're throwing yourself into the ridiculous situations and letting out a genuine laugh when the party pulls some absurd stunt that somehow works, your players will feel that. It's like a magnetic field of fun. Your energy makes them want to have a blast too. If you're grinning from ear to ear as they somehow bumble their way through a puzzle you thought would stump them for hours, that's when everyone wins. Now, let's clear the air. This doesn't mean you're here to crush their souls or turn this into a me versus them competition. This isn't about proving that you're the supreme ruler of tabletop chaos, though, okay, technically you are in this scenario, but the real joy, it comes from watching your players succeed. You're not the villain in some kind of DM versus player smackdown. Instead, your job is to be the audience, the referee, and the world itself all at once. Sure, throw them some curveballs, give them challenges that make them sweat, but relish in those moments where they outsmart you or when that long shot plan actually works. And let's be real for a second. Those are the moments we live for as DMs, aren't they? That, wait, what? Expression on your face when they somehow one-shot the BBG you just finished prepping. Yeah, that's golden. You don't need to beat them. You need to enjoy them. Like a reality show where they're the chaos contestants and you're the producer watching it all gloriously go off the rails. When you have fun, they'll feel it. If you're up there grinning, cracking jokes, and having a genuinely good time, your players are going to pick up on it. They'll see it in the way that you describe the world, and how you react when they go completely off the map, literally and figuratively, and in the energy you bring to the table. That's the magic here. It doesn't matter how many battle maps you prepare, minis you've painted, or compelling villains and stories you create. The magic comes from you enjoying the game too. You could throw out every tip I gave you. This game is one of magic and excitement because you are getting to enjoy your time with the real life people you care about and tell a story about some not so real life people together. And that is always going to work best when you are all having fun. So yeah, plan those fiendish traps, cackle when the dice turn against them, and feel the joy when they find something ridiculous to do to survive. Your fun isn't a side effect, it's the driving force behind the game. Let yourself enjoy their victories, embrace their unexpected wins, and relish in the shared chaos. Because at the end of the day, it's not just their story, it's yours too. And when you're both having fun, that's when you turn a good session into one they'll be talking about for years. Shit, I forgot to do the outro thing. It was just so poignant. I got lost in the sauce. The ending was so good I didn't want to mess with it. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Okay, we're gonna speedrun this. Subscribe, like, comment, the notification bell's there. Free Patreon. There's a store and a disc, and there's a link in the description. And there's some videos here. Click this one for all the videos, and then click this one. It's the tanking one. People seem to like that one. Oh yeah. That's it. I guess. Catch you on the flip side.